In this video, I'm going to be talking about how to make sourdough in hot weather and how to prevent overproving, whether it's hot or not. There is never any reason to overproof dough. You have complete control, and I'm going to show you how. Hi, I'm Elaine from Foodbod Sourdough. Welcome back to my kitchen. In this video, we're going to cover a couple of areas. The main one being how to make sourdough in hot weather, but also teamed therefore with how to prevent overproving. So whether you've got hot weather or not, overproving can often sometimes be an issue. So we've got those both subjects being covered in one in this video. And the reason for it being, when it comes to the hot weather, sourdough is, like all bread, is powered by yeast. In our sourdough, it's a natural yeast because we're using our starter. Yeast always responds to heat, and when it comes into making sourdough in the heat and the summer, or if you live in a hot country, it doesn't mean you therefore can't make it. It just there needs to be tweaks made. And it's really simple to do, which is what you're going to see in this video. And what you're also going to see is what overproofed dough looks like, what you can then do with it, because there's never any reason to throw dough away. What the outcome might be if you then try and bake the loaf with it. But the key thing to keep in mind is you are always in control of your dough. This is one of the things that I always talk about. It's a key element to how I make sourdough, how I teach people to make sourdough. You always have complete control. You never need to be getting up at 3 in the morning to sort your dough out. Whatever the time of year, wherever you live, you can still be making sourdough. So the key aim for this video is to be showing you the difference the heat can make and how to prevent it, because we want our nice happy loaves. So if you've got any worries about overproving, this is the place to be. Keep watching. So the first place to begin is with your starter. So everything I talk about, everything you read always refers to room temperature. And it is room temperature that makes a difference to everything. When it's cold, it's going to slow things down. When it's hot, it's going to speed things up. This is why I always recommend and I always talk about having a thermometer in your kitchen. And with these, with the one I use, you can actually set it so you can see what the temperatures are across 24 hours or whenever you leave the dough, so you can see what's gone on. So when I left this one overnight, it's gone up to 23 degrees. And that's overnight. So this is the kind of temperature we're looking at combating, even if it goes higher. So there's still easy ways to deal with that. So when it comes to your starter, let's just have a little reminder. So this is our very happy, very active starter. We've got our lovely texture to it, nice thickness. This is how we want our starter to be. This is a starter that has been left out in the heat to show you the difference. So this can happen within a day if it's very hot in your kitchen. And it's all it's doing is getting hungry. So the starter ferments and ferments and ferments. And in the warmth, as it gets to the point where it's eaten through all of its flour, then starts to separate and it creates this liquid on the top, often called hooch, because it smells so strongly. It smells very alcoholic. It's really strong. And this is showing you that this is hungry. So this is not ruined. The dough, it doesn't need to be thrown away. It's just a hungry starter. And you've got two choices with this. When you get this layer on it, you can either pour it off or you can stir it in. If you stir it in, you actually give your starter a lot more flavour, because it's been working so hard and produced this, and this smell of acetone and alcohol that you get off it actually adds extra sourness. So it's not always, sometimes it's a useful thing to do if you want to have extra sourness in your bread. Let it get a bit hungry. And what you can do then, choices, you pour it off or you stir it in. You'll see as you stir it in how murky it is, what the colour looks like. But what you'll also see then is as a result of all this work, your starter has become very thin. That is what happens when your starter gets too hungry. And that is going to struggle to lift your dough. So it's still not ruined, it's still easily fixed. All you would need to do at this point is feed it with just some flour. Don't give it any water, just some flour, thicken it up and let it grow again. And it'll be right back to play. So it's easy to use still, and you can see all of this in our starter frequently asked questions video. So this is all covered there. So you'll see this isn't ruined at all, but this is the effect of the heat. And that can happen because you've left it out for too long. It can happen very quickly if your kitchen is too warm. So the easy way to manage this is pretty much like everything, is keep an eye on it. So if you've got a kitchen where the temperatures are coming over 22, 23 degrees, higher than that, when you do feed your starter, give it a stir, give it its flour and water, and leave it to respond. Just keep an eye on it because it might grow to where you want it to be within 1 or 2 hours. And then stick it in the fridge. Either get on and use it or just stick it in the fridge. Or if you see it starting to grow very quickly, just stick it in the fridge. Just put its lid on loosely and let it carry on in the fridge. Again, it will continue to grow. It will, as it cools down in your fridge, it will continue to grow and then it'll come to a point where it stops. My starter just continues growing in the fridge because it's nice and strong and because there's a lot of power going on. So it will continue to do that job, but the fridge is your friend. So let it grow to maybe 50, 60%. If it's starting to go quickly, stick it in the fridge and let it carry on. And then when you want to use it, just spoon it straight out of the jar. You don't need to bring it up to room temperature or do anything else with it. Just bring it straight out of the jar, starter into your bowl to start making your dough. So those are your easy fixes when it's hot weather. Okay, so this is just going to get some flour put in it and it'll be absolutely fine. It'll be right as rain again. So with the hot temperatures, watch it. It's always the same. Keep an eye on your starter, keep an eye on your dough. Those are always the key things to do. So that's the situation with the starter. Now let me show you some dough. So in this bowl, we've got my very happily well-proved dough using my master recipe. What I'm also then going to show you is some other doughs that are very overproofed at different stages so that you can see what overproofed dough looks like. But the main tip, and if you only ever watched the video to this point, the main tip for protecting your dough from overproving is to use less starter. And when I mean less, I mean a lot less. The hotter it gets, the less you use. So literally, I'm talking a teaspoon. That's all this dough has got in it, is a teaspoon of starter. Worked out at about 10, just over 10 grams. That's all it's got in it. And that has produced our lovely dough. So I made this within my usual time scales, made it yesterday afternoon. I've left it out to prove. As you can see, it's been warm overnight. I've left it on the counter and it's absolutely fine because it's got less starter in. So your starter is the power. It's the power you're giving your dough to grow. And by giving it less power, you prevent it from overproving when it's hot. And you can go down to 5 grams, you can go down to teeny tiny amounts and it's still going to be absolutely fine. So if you want to still be proving your dough on the counter overnight, just use less starter. If it's also humid as well, then also use a bit less water. And you can see more information about that in my book. Everything is covered in it in the Sourdough Bible. So you've got easy fixes here. When it's hot, less and less starter. If it's hot and humid, less starter and 25 grams less water. And your dough is still going to be absolutely fine. So let's show you as a reminder, this, our lovely, happy, structured dough. Exactly how we want it to be. I've made this one with the orange bag, with Churchill's Matthew's Cotswold flour, Churchill's white, lovely strong white bread flour. Everything else was the same. 500 grams of flour, 350 grams of water, salt to taste, but just that teeny tiny amount of starter. And look at that, that's our dough, doing its usual thing, holding its ball. So that one is just going to go into the fridge for its cold proof to bake later. A little bit of rice flour over the top. That is the aim. That is how we want our dough to be as much as possible. So let me just put that one in the fridge. As you can see, this dough has been in the fridge and it's been continuing to prove. So we use the fridge so that we can have a cold proof, we can create some shape in the dough. But when you put your dough in the fridge, it's not immediately suddenly cold. It won't stop proving like that because you've got to bring the dough down from room temperature in the first place to get it to that cold state. So it's going to continue to prove. And even in the cold, if your dough is strong enough or you're opening or closing the door, there's different heats going on, your dough can still prove. So don't assume that you can't overproof dough in the fridge. If you leave it in there for long enough, like I did with this one, there's every chance it will still overprove. So this, this little monster, I've left in the fridge for quite a while to be able to show you what the outcome might be. So you can see already, now that I've taken off the shower cap, this is starting to spread. This is going to start collapsing. So we're going to turn it out and attempt to score it so that you can see what the outcome could be. Even just moving it, it's starting to blow bubbles again. It's a very lively beast. So yeah, let's see what it does. Let's see how we get on with turning it out and scoring it. So let's put some paper over the top. So as we turn it out, I can already see it exploding. And what you'll see in the banneton, if you've had a dough that's been really damp from too much water or because it's overproofed, you will have a damp banneton. So this will also tell you the story. So with that, it just needs to sit out, put it on your windowsill in the sunshine, just leave it out so that it will dry out again and it will be absolutely fine. So this monster is already spreading. It's got quite a dried feel to it where it's been in the banneton for so long because I've left it so long to show you. But the bottom is already splodging out. So we're going to attempt to score this. And it's not too bad to score because this is dried a lot. But often when people say to me, I think I needed a better lame, I can't score my dough. It's never about that. If you've changed the blade, it's never about your lame. It's always about the dough. So if your blade is dragging, it's usually because the dough is too soft, because it's too wet, or like this one, as you can see, it's overproofed and it's fighting back. So can you see, are you able to show just how much this is spreading and splodging? As you may recall, when you've seen other videos, normally my dough would be sitting very happily proud and it wouldn't be moving. But this is already starting to spread. So we're going to get that into the oven and you can see what the outcome is. We will return. So as we go on then in stages of overproving, what you might then have, this one it's still not too bad, is you might start to have this growing up and getting really, really bubbly. If we'd left this a little bit longer, you'd have a lot more bubbles on the top. Okay, so much as bubbly doughs look, they look fun, they usually mean that your dough is starting to overproof or it's too wet. But just for comparison, just to show you, I'm going to show you how this will handle and then some other doughs. So this one shouldn't be too bad. So if you get your dough to this point, the first thing it's going to do is collapse because it's got all that air in it. Can you see all the bubbles coming? See how much this is collapsing in comparison to the other one. But it's still got a bit of structure to it. It's still got a bit of something. It's sticking to the bowl a lot more. It's not going to be as tidy at all, but we could still save this one. So you need to be able to push it. Still push it into itself, and actually it's not too bad. It's going to be stickier. It's going to be a bit scary to handle, especially when it collapses, but you can still save this one. Okay, so this one just shows you there's levels and levels of this. So let's get that one into the fridge. One of the things I struggle with when I do these videos is actually struggle to overproof my dough enough. So hopefully I'm going to be able to show you, I know I'm going to be able to show you some that's really, really gone. Okay, so that was the next level, not too bad. And then what you might have is this, where it's grown and it's exploded, it's coming over the top. So this is to show you what a dough might be like if you've got some whole grain flour in it. So this is a mix of white and wholemeal or whole grain flour, whole wheat. So it's a mix of the two. So I wanted you to show what happens to the structure with this when you touch it, because when you're using whole grain and it overproofs, it kind of collapses even more. So let's see what we can do with this one. Some of this is probably going a bit over the top, but I want you to be able to see the stages, just how far it can go when you overproof dough and what I've seen people have in their kitchens. So with this one, it's, look, immediately collapsing on itself. But it's still not too bad. You still might be able to get something out of it. So again, don't be too worried. If you've got to that point, you might still be able to pull it into something. It's stickier and it's going to be a little bit sloppier. It's not as firm as I would want it to be. It's a little bit looser, but you may still be okay with that. It may end up being a bit more spread than you like, but it's not going to be too bad. There's a chance that you might get something out of it, but look, it's not holding its shape. It's spreading as I'm holding it. So that's a dough that is definitely heading into overproof territory, and there's every chance it's going to spread when you turn that out to bake. And do you know what? I think I might put that in a loaf pan instead. So this is your other alternative. If you've got a dough, you don't know if it's going to hold its shape, you're not convinced it's going to be okay, put it in a loaf pan. It's a perfect solution. something like that into a loaf pan. You could also use it to make focaccia, but this one I think you could still get some structure from it. So what you're going to notice as well is the more these overproof, the stronger they smell. So let me show you what the next step is. For this one, I'm just going to give my hand a clean, and I'm going to wear a glove, so bear with me. So for this one, I'm wearing a glove, and you'll see why. So this is a dough that's really heavily overproofed. And one of the key tells that you'll see is as your dough is, as it's been out for longer and it's proving more and more, it grows up. It becomes bubbly, it looks cool, it's quite vivacious, and then it starts to sink. That's when you know it's really become quite heavily overproofed, but also it gets quite shiny. And this, when I touch this, is very likely to collapse quite heavily. The smell will also be really strong. So let's just show you. I mean, there is nothing left to that. This structure. Yes, got nothing. So this is not dough that you're going to be able to shape at all. So whereas the previous doughs, like the one I just shaped with the whole grain in, I'm going to turn that into a sandwich loaf. I could have also possibly used it to make focaccia. This is a whole other level. And if you want to take it one step further, this one was out even longer, and it's, look, this is soup. Now I see people have dough like this, which of course is, you know, terrifies people and is very confusing because it's like, well, why is my dough like that? So this is heavily overproofed dough. It's slimy, there's no structure. And basically because it's been left out for so long, or it's been in the heat for too long. So this is what heat will do. You will literally have nothing left to it. I think we can say I've successfully managed to massively overproof this one, James. What do you reckon?
Definitely.
And the smell is so strong. So the thing to do now is resist the temptation to try and put either of those doughs in a banneton. It's going to be absolutely pointless. I wouldn't even put it in a loaf pan. It's going to do nothing. But don't waste it. So a really good thing to do with dough like this is use it to make flatbreads or pancakes. So a really easy thing to do is to just stir some milk into it. So you've got the basis there for a batter. So using whatever milk you fancy, this is oat milk. I can't tell you how much to put in it because you would need to judge it yourself. But all you need to do, stir some milk into it, get it to a batter consistency, however you like your pancakes, and turn it into some really cracking, tasty sourdough pancakes or flatbreads. So there's always something that you can do with it. Really simple solution. So I'm going to keep stirring that when the time comes because I'm going to want it just maybe a tiny bit thinner. You could add a bit of bicarb to it if you want to give it some of the bubbles that you would get if you're going to have thicker pancakes or Scotch pancakes, or just slop it into a pan and cook it. So don't ever waste it. If you're faced with dough like this that is scaring the life out of you, don't waste it. You can always use it. And on that subject, there's one last one to show you. So just give me a second. So if you've ever woken up to this, your dough pretty much escaping. This had another bowl over the top of it last night because I knew it would overproof. I didn't realise it was going to be quite this bad. So it's pushed the bowl off when it just kept on growing. which also means that a lot of it has gotten really dry as well, because it's ended up with nothing covering it, nothing to protect the moisture. So if you've ever ended up with something like this, this is telling you your dough overproved. But again, it doesn't necessarily mean that it can be wasted. So you've got choices. You can take off the dry bits and see what's underneath, or you can just see what you can do. See if you can save any of it. Because look, there's still some structure under there. So let's see if there's anything we can do with it. So if you'd have taken off all of that dried dough, you'd have still had enough under there to probably give you maybe a baby loaf. But actually, if you look at it, there's still enough in it, structure-wise, for you to turn it into a bit of a loaf.
What are those dry bits going to do?
The dry bits, you would hope that they're going to soak up a bit of moisture again whilst this goes into the banneton for a second proof. They should just kind of re-moisturise themselves and, you know, revitalise themselves. But this is why, if you don't want to take that risk, you can always just pull them off and turn it into a smaller dough. But the point being that the dough that was sitting underneath it actually is all still okay and all still usable. But again, because it is a little bit soft, I would put that in a loaf pan and turn it into a sandwich loaf and just see what it does. So the aim of all of this was not just me having fun in my kitchen, but to show you that dough never needs to go to waste. It can all still be used, but those are the levels you're going to go to when it comes to overproving. So if you have got that going on in your kitchen, it's a really, really simple fix. Massively simple fix. Just use less starter. If you're still not convinced and you're really concerned that the dough is going to overproof if you leave it on your counter overnight, put it in the fridge. Always the answer, just leave the cover on it and stick it in the fridge. The dough will continue to prove to a certain extent before it then goes to sleep. In the next morning, take it out the fridge, just put it on the counter and let it finish proving and go on to the next step. So there's always solutions. So whether you live in a hot country and it's hot all the time, or you're just living somewhere where you've got a hot summer, in the UK even, we're starting to get it warm enough that we need to make differences, make changes to our dough making. There's easy fixes. Use less starter, put your dough in the fridge overnight if you're worried about it, or make the dough during the day. Start it in the morning, do your pulls and folds for a couple of hours, and then leave it on the counter where you can see the dough. And as soon as you see it double, get it into the banneton, get it in the fridge. So there's really easy fixes to all of this. But also, don't ever think that your dough should be wasted. There's never any reason to throw dough away. It can always be used, whether you turn it into a sandwich loaf, whether you turn it into focaccia, whether you're going to just whiz it up and turn it into pancakes, or maybe that becomes flatbreads. It can always be used. So something like that one, maybe we could just stir in some seasoning and spread it out, turn it into some crackers or something really thin. Just put a thin layer of it onto a baking tray, a lined baking tray, bake it, 180, and just keep an eye on it and turn it into some crackers, something completely different. So you can always use your dough. If you're not too sure what to do with it, stick it in the fridge whilst you think about it. But nothing should ever go to waste. So I'm just going to do some bits and pieces with these things and before we wrap up. Just to show you what I've done with some of this different dough. So that last sticky one, the one that was all exploded out of the bowl, I pulled it together to come into the loaf pan, it's made a real sloppy mess. It's sloppy and sticky, and I have no idea if it's actually going to achieve anything. We need to see if it's going to grow again a bit. It may well bake to quite a dense loaf, but it's worth trying. The alternative with that was to see if you could turn it again into some focaccia. To do that, you do have details in my book and on my website, but it would just be a case of just putting some oil in a pan, slopping the dough into it, giving it a good dimple and baking it. I wouldn't even necessarily try it proving again, to be honest. But that's what I did with that one. So with this one, the one that I added milk to, I've also added a bit of bicarbonate of soda, which is why it's gone all so lovely and bubbly, and it now looks like a great big bowl of active starter. And just to show you, I've just got a pan out and given it a go and turned some into some little pancakes. Which works perfectly. I probably shouldn't have done that whilst I've still got things to talk about. And the other one, that other dough that was not quite as far gone, I've stirred some oil into it, and you could add in whatever herbs you fancy, a bit of salt, anything to turn it into some crackers. I've used this, one of these flat iron mixes, which is, this one's roasted garlic, chipotle and toasted onion. Oh, they're so good. Got another one with jalapenos in. They're so good. And all I've done is spread it thinly onto some parchment paper on an oven tray. I'm going to show you what it's doing. It's still baking at the moment. It was quite thick. Quite difficult to get it quite thin. So, like I say, it's still baking at the moment. But what you'll see is we're basically creating some crackers. Crackers, flatbreads, whatever you want to call it. Tasty. The key with this, because it was quite thick, is not to bake it too high because it's going to need to dry out. So I'm going to turn the oven down a bit because it just needs to finish off. But that's very good, and it's a little bit spicy. So let me put that back in the oven. And then for the last thing, let's show you this loaf. So we took the loaf out the oven to show you what happened with that loaf. And actually it's not as bad as I wanted it to be honest with you, because I wanted to show you something a whole lot worse. And it's, you can see how it's spread, you can see the shape of it, but something you'll also notice is it's pale. So what I'm going to do is just to really show you. These are the pages from my book, The Sourdough Bible, and what you'll see here is we started with a really bubbly, overproofed dough, and I managed to overproof it enough to make it as bad as I needed it to be, which I struggle to do, I have to be honest. But what you would typically get is a really flat, wide loaf, very little action in it. It would be dense. It's going to be, you know, not as nice to eat if it was light and airy, but you still get a lot of flavour. So this is probably still not going to be too bad to eat, to be honest with you. And once again, I haven't been able to make it as bad enough, as bad as I wanted, but hopefully it does show you the difference it makes. Also, what I hope I've shown you is that even when you think some of the dough has gone a bit far, you can still save it. If it's gone really horrifically over, there's other things you can do with it. But just remember, and it is all in the book, it's on other ones of my videos, you can always save your dough. You can always get it back to this lovely shape that you want just by using a whole lot less starter. Just give it less energy, give the heat less to work with. and it will save your dough. It will save your sleep, and it will make life really simple. So you've got lots of options with timetables and things like that in my book. There's more stuff on my website. Really, I hope that you have found this interesting and valuable, if nothing else, just to see the fun I've had in my kitchen with playing around with dough, so that you can see the difference it makes at the different stages. Either way, don't be scared of your dough. Don't ever throw dough away, because it can always become something else. Even a sludgy mess like that can become something else, and it will be tasty, especially when you add some extra bits to it. It will be tasty, and there'll be things that you can do with it. Look at that. It's always good fun when you add bicarbonate of soda to things. Anyway, instead of me just keep standing here playing with things, maybe I should let James have some food. What do you reckon? Do you need food, James? Yeah. Is that you nodding? Yeah. So we hope that you found this interesting. If you have any questions, you know where to find us. And happy baking, and happy having fun in the hot weather, because you can still make your sourdough. And right, I'm going to see what we can do with that. Something else that I did mean to say: if your dough is really, really overproofed, and your loaf is really overproofed, you'll never be able to get a lot of colour on it. It will only ever stay pale. It's the same if you underproof dough. You'll end up with a very pale loaf. So if you've ever had a loaf that is really pale and you've baked it for longer and longer and longer, and it has still stayed pale, it's because there's a proofing issue. So that's my final tip. And with that, I'll say goodbye. Thank you for watching.